So the topic of this video is my experience on the ketogenic diet, to which I started about 10 months ago. Since I started it, there's been a whole lot of positive aspects to which I've noticed. There are obviously some negative aspects which I'll go into a little bit further. Probably the biggest thing that came up with the ketogenic diet, especially for me, was the initial adaptation period, and what that was going to be like, how long that was going to last, and whether or not I'd be able to see it through or make it through and continue on the diet. The symptoms that I experienced initially was lethargy. I was very lethargic. My appetite was kind of strange. I thought I would be hungry. I think initially I was the first day, then after that I wasn't as hungry. I felt more sort of sick. Not necessarily nauseous, however I did feel nauseous a few days in. And overall, just to describe the feeling, it was like being hungover for like a good week or so. I'd say it took me about 2 weeks before I felt normal again and things started getting a lot better. There was also a lot of dizziness in terms of my vision. I guess I could say it was somewhat blurry, and I was unable to concentrate or read. So that was definitely somewhat frustrating. There were muscle cramps and headaches. And I think that just comes down to being dehydrated, because usually what happens is when you stop eating a high amount of carbohydrates, because carbohydrates bind with water, you lose a lot of water. That would explain why you feel dehydrated and hungover. Hungover's basically as a result of being dehydrated. So when you lose a lot of water, you also lose a lot of salts, like sodium, potassium, magnesium, etc. So a good way to sort of combat that would be supplementing with salt, magnesium, potassium, having food sources that are high in those. And I drank a lot of sugar-free Powerades or Gatorades or Loadeds. Loadeds are probably the best. They have the highest amount of electrolytes, and that did help, but it didn't cure it, unfortunately. So I'd say it took about 2 weeks to come back to normal, and then maybe 3 weeks before it was like I was feeling like back to normal, if not better. Initially, in the first month, I didn't lose any weight, but I gauged my process on the mirror and how I looked, and there was a significant difference in how I looked. Yet my weight didn't change, which was kind of interesting. I guess that comes down to me. I started going back to the gym, so it was probably getting back a lot of the fullness that I lost in the muscle. But then after that month, my weight dropped quite significantly. I started at about 95 kilos, dropped down to as low as 81. At the moment, I'm probably fluctuating between 85 and 87 kilos. So, and that seems to be a sort of sticking point, a good spot for my weight. In terms of my performance, it's hard to say for me what the initial I would imagine, well, based on the fact that I started going to the gym again after taking a 6-month break and going on the ketogenic diet, my strength and performance only got better because it was just horrible to start off with. I would imagine with someone who is training whilst going on the ketogenic diet and through the adaptation period, that there will be a significant decrease in performance and strength, but I would imagine that after a month or so of seeing it through, things would come back to normal. A lot of the strength loss will probably be due to the fact that you're losing a lot of water, and once your body comes back into homeostasis, things will sort of correct themselves. And also performance for me, I do a lot of high intensity training. I like to train sort of short and sweet and heavy, and I do a lot of like half an hour, sort of sprint recover sort of cardio sessions a week, and honestly, no difference. I wouldn't say better, but I wouldn't say worse. No difference from having a high carbohydrate diet. But some of the big positive aspects of it is a stable, constant energy throughout the day. I don't fluctuate up and down. Like a lot of people will notice that if they have lunch, they'll feel tired. Maybe a couple of hours later, need to have a nap. I know I definitely had that all throughout high school, and I only realised thinking back after going on a ketogenic diet and how annoying it was. Hunger pangs, you do experience some hunger pangs, but it's more like your stomach's empty and you can just like power on through it, so you don't get this uncomfortable urge and craving to eat. You can just sort of put it to the side and work through it, or do whatever you're doing. You can ignore it. Mental clarity is a whole lot better, and being able to concentrate on things for long periods of time, especially when you are maybe hungry, in regards to me, I think it's also a huge health benefit, because I've never been diagnosed with anything to do with my bowel movements, but there is some family history, and almost some of the symptoms I experienced were similar to IBS or Crohn's disease, especially when I was about 16. So, and then since going on this ketogenic diet, I don't experience nearly as much gas, and food just seems to digest a whole lot better. Bowel movements are a lot more consistent, and previously when I was eating a lot of carbohydrates, bowel movements weren't fun. Social aspects of it is obviously a huge negative. I can't go out and eat whatever the hell I want. I have to kind of be mindful of what I'm eating. A lot of times I can just sort of have breakfast meals. Big breakfasts are pretty easy, just don't have the toast, whatever. Steak and salad, no chips. That's usually my go-to. It can make it kind of tricky. Just look at the menus before you're going, though. It's still possible. You do have to kind of be careful as well, because if you do go off it accidentally, it will throw you out of ketosis. But if you're in ketosis, you do go out of it, it's a lot easier to come back into it than the initial stages of going from a carbohydrate-rich diet to which you've been used to your whole life, then going to fats. Now you've sort of flipped a switch, your body knows, muscle memory, kind of like that. It'll come back. So don't worry. I've been kicked out of it a few times, especially I think I ordered a Diet Coke, ended up with a real Coke. The next day wasn't nice. I felt pretty shitty, got a headache, but like I say, get straight back into it. It's not a problem. I mean, a lot of people report that it's not so great for high intensity sort of endurance. No, not endurance. High intensity sort of sports. But like I say, I mean, that's nothing that I've experienced. I mean, I'm by no means an athlete, but I do train with high intensity and have not noticed a difference. So that could be a case by case. I do very much believe that it is a case by case sort of issue, and some people will notice it, some won't. And I can say that I haven't noticed it being an issue. There could potentially be, I do want to address this, potentially be other causes for the reason why things, I notice a lot more positive aspects than negative aspects, and that could be attributed to just me cutting out something that was causing an issue. Like, I really think that oats and rice didn't particularly agree with me. That could be a result of my poor bowel movements, but it's really hard to say. it could just be like an elimination diet, but it's working for me. It's sustainable. The key thing is that it's sustainable, so I'm going to stick to it. Doesn't mean I won't introduce carbs back into my diet ever again. I likely will. It's just working for me now. So thank you.